This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television. This is a rebroadcast of the Eau Claire School Board meeting. The audio for this program can be heard on WRFP LP 101.9 FM.
We'll call to order tonight's Eau Claire Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary Iverson, we complied with the open meetings law notification this evening.
Yes, we have.
Thank you. Could you please do a roll call to verify quorum?
Commissioner Duax. Present. Commissioner Humbug-Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Luganbill.
Here.
Commissioner Spindler.
Here.
Commissioner Vu.
Here.
Commissioner Jean.
Here. All right, great, thank you. So first on our agenda after these initial parts was the public forum. Reminder, a public forum is limited to 30 minutes and each citizen is limited up to 4 minutes. I ask that if you do speak and someone has already basically said the same thing, just do a summary of what you want to say so we don't take too much time from other citizens who want to speak. So I've got the list here, and the first is Ron Bothwell. Come up and just state your name and address in the microphone. If we could, someone could, Jason or someone, could you make sure that, is it on okay? Just come on up and state your name and address and make your statement. Thank you.
At this position here? Yes. Okay. My name is Ron Bothwell. I live at S 8534 County Road B, Eau Claire, Iowa. And I'm come to speak in front of all you people. I'm not a good speaker, so bear with me. I have come to this meeting because I'm a concerned grandfather and a United States citizen. I include the phrase United States because what starts small could have a result nationwide. People change natural things to satisfy a few people, not the majority. I wish that the taxpayers could vote on things like this because it would be a different story, and not to leave it up to a few people. People who want the changes are people who care about themselves, not the privacy of others. How would you like to go into the bathroom, your daughter or your son, having a girl walk in to the boys' bathroom and showing themselves, or a boy walk into a girl's bathroom showing herself? Think about it. It only will get worse in restaurants, colleges, and stadiums where thousands of people go. Finishing, I will say the state and city and nation are saying good is evil and evil is good. Mark it down. It's only going to get worse if you allow this to happen. I'm a Christian, and I know what the difference is between good and evil, and I hope you do. Also, I'm here not to tell people they can't have their own rights, but if it hinders me and my rights, and my children and my grandchildren rights, I'm here to live in a decent society, and I'm here to stand against that. I'd like to share a little story real quick.
You have a little less than a minute to finish, please. Thank you.
A man named Adolf Hitler told people, if you tell people enough the same thing, they'll get it in their heads to do that same thing. And that's what the school system does from the kindergarten all the way up. They change people's minds to their agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, I don't know if it's Daniel or Danielle Hickman. Please come up and state your name and address. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Daniel Hickman, and I'm from Lublin, Wisconsin. I'm a member of Salem Baptist Church at 1210 East Claremont Avenue in Eau Claire. I speak to you board members. I'm concerned about the issues that face the city of Eau Claire. As an active member of Salem Baptist Church, I too am a follower of Jesus Christ and believe that the words of Jesus Christ are to be the rule for everyone's life. I commend each commissioner for the good you are doing to provide good education, proper care, and safety for all of the students of the Eau Claire Area School District. To that end, I will comment on the proposed change to Policy 411. As commissioners and educators, you were trained and appointed to be true educators. A true educator teaches fact, truth, and reality, and uses them to teach all of the subjects that are applicable to their students. The change to give special protection to transgendered students or identity and expression denies the natural biological facts about male and female sexuality. Transgender identity is sensual, want to be, not fact and reality. To promote the transgender concept is to deny the facts and to manipulate them to support a hidden agenda. The facts of human sexuality cannot be changed by a person's desired selection, therapy, or surgery. Paul McHugh, MD and University Distinguished Service Professor of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins Medical School, after pioneering sex change surgery, wrote, "We demonstrated that the practice brought no important benefits." He also wrote, "Transgendered men do not become women, and transgendered women do not become men. All, including Bruce Jenner, become feminized men or masculinized women, counterfeits or impersonators of the sex with which they identify. In that lies their problematic future. When the tumult and shouting dies, it proves not easy nor wise to live in a counterfeit sexual garb. The most thorough follow-up of sex reassigned people extending over 30 years and conducted in Sweden, where the culture is strongly supportive of the transgendered, documents their lifelong mental unrest. 10 to 15 years after surgical reassignment, the suicide rate of those who had undergone sex reassignment surgery rose to 20 times that of comparable peers. Youth and puberty are potentially confusing times, and more than not, please protect the students from a confused and destructive lifestyle. Please do not implement this policy change that will help lock them into a damaging future. Help the students make good, wholesome choices. I believe the answer can be found in the words of Jesus Christ. He said, "Have you not read that he that created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh? So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man separate." I call on you commissioners to refuse to be persuaded by an unnatural, misplaced sexual philosophy, and be valiant, true educators of the facts and truth of reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Monique. I have Monique Kallenbach, I believe. Yes. All right, thank you. All right, state your name and address. And just so everyone knows, if we each have them 4 minutes, not everyone will have a chance to speak. So,
My name is Monique Kallenbach. I live here in Eau Claire at 708 Gilbert Street, and I come here as a mother, a grandmother, and a former student of this enterprise. And I'm in opposition to this particular change. I've done extensive reading, and I guess the testimony of a woman by the name of Kaylee Triller. She's a rape survivor. And she says here, what I'm saying is that there are countless deviant men in this world who will pretend to be transgender as a means of gaining access to the people they want to exploit, namely women and children. It already happens. Just Google Jason Palmares, Norwood, Smith Burns, or Taylor Bueller for starters, and then our recent teacher up there at Chippewa. There are countless deviants in this world who pretend to be transgender as a mean of gaining access to people they want to exploit. While I feel a deep sense of empathy for what must be a difficult situation for transgendered people at the beginning and end of the day, it is nothing short of negligent to instate policies that elevate the emotional comfort of a relative few over the physical safety of a large group of vulnerable people. Don't they know anything about predators? You guys know about predators? How about the numbers? Out of every 100 rapes, only 2 spend as much of a single day in jail. The other 98 walk free. And they hang out around the rest of us. Don't they know that predators are known to intentionally seek out places where they find many of their preferred targets, where they gather in groups, locker rooms, bathrooms. Perpetrators are addicts committed to their fantasies, and nothing will stop them. Her pain is very touching. Also, the American College of Pediatrics urges educators and legislators to reject all policies that condition children to accept as normal a life of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex. Facts, not ideology, determine reality.
We have less than a minute left, please.
So I would encourage this board to reject this idea of changing this policy. My youngest daughter at North High School, less than 10 years ago, was intimidated by a fellow student who was a member of the LGBT crowd. Nothing was done to protect her because she did not fall into the federal definition of a protected class. Bullying is bullying. Intimidation is intimidation. I know what it was like. I was intimidated for years on the Eau Claire Public School bus. Mean is mean, and if you're going to address mean, do it. But don't create a special class of perpetrators.
Thank you. I have John. Eiley? Thank you.
Thank you. My name's John Eiley. I'm a resident of the Eau Claire School District. I live at 4605 Burnell Drive. I'm a citizen, a taxpayer, a parent, and a grandparent. And I appreciate the open meeting policy. I thank each of you school board members for your service. I'm sure you invest a lot of time, research, and discussion. I would imagine it's both rewarding and challenging. And thank you, Superintendent, for your service to our community. I'll just read my statement, and it's fairly short, so hopefully it won't be nearly 4 minutes. Human beings are designed by their Creator as male or female. This design structure is God-given, and therefore we believe it is designed for the well-being and proper functioning of individuals, families, and communities in the human race. It would be going against God's wise design to seek to change or reject this God-given gift of sexuality. As to school policy related to individuals who want to be or claim to be bisexual or transgender, we should uphold the created order of maleness and femaleness and encourage students to embrace their created sexuality. In regards to restrooms in public schools, students should continue to be provided with 2 options of male and female restrooms and use the appropriate one according to their anatomy of birth. That is, if they were born male, they should use the male restroom. and if born female, they should use the female restroom. Thank you for allowing me to share my viewpoint.
Thank you very much. Ryan Rudak? State your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Rudak, S5135, Highway 37, Eau Claire, 54701. I realize that this policy 411 has been pretty controversial lately. I am compelled as a citizen and a taxpayer, as a voter, and a Christian to protest the changes for policy 411 that include gender identity and expression. We realize that the state has failed to give us guidelines because Assembly Bill 469 had died in legislation. That leaves the districts to be self-governed. Policy 411 specifically would allow the superintendent full administration and authorization of how the policy is to be enacted upon, without school board or parental input, which would generally be self-governance. This could easily lead to policy changes to 411 down the road that may not have been intended. The State Board of Michigan passed legislation that would allow students to use facilities at their sole discretion without any guidelines. I want to thank Mr. Lugenberg personally for taking the time out of his schedule to talk to me over the phone and exchange some emails. Even though he has been diligent with exploring the resolutions, I believe this goes beyond just his position as a school board member. Because of the major changes that we've seen in Michigan, the threat can be realized here, such as policy implementation and changes despite parental or doctoral input. We need more research, guidance, and simply not make the changes. We need to stand on our moral grounds and not accept Title IX funding if that's what it means. Although our board member, Mr. Joe Lugenberg, was willing to meet and discuss alternatives with a second phone call or meeting, I realized that I don't have ideas myself how to fix this issue. So I guess my stance on it is to simply vote no and table the issue. Touching back on the State Board of Michigan passing this aggressive legislation, the American College of Pediatrics released Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association released these facts about post-adolescent children. A person's belief that he or she is something they are not is at best a sign of confused thinking. An objective psychological problem exists that lies in the mind and not the body. These children suffer from gender dysphoria that is recognized as a mental disorder in the most recent edition of DSM-V. DSM-V reports 98% of boys and 88% of girls naturally and eventually accept their biological sex and gender. Children who use puberty blockers to impersonate the opposite sex will need cross-sex hormones that have been known to cause high blood pressure, blood clots, cancer, as well as raising the suicide rate.
Ryan, you have about half a minute.
Thank you. Basically stating the ACP urges all municipalities to reject the policies that condition children to accept the normal life of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex. To do so would be considered child abuse. That being said, why now? Why so late with all the attention? Partly due to the fact that there has not been made enough awareness in the public eye, partly due to our fault as
I'm
parents.
going to need you to make your final statement. Thank you.
I am, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Partly as parents, partly as school board, but also the media, which either edits articles or doesn't cover the whole story, or simply creates censorship on their stories and articles on their websites. So with that, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Becky Linderloh.
My name's Becky Linderholm, and I'm actually a resident of Altoona, but a parent and a teacher in the district.
Just go ahead and give your full address, though.
Yep,
Thank you.
303 10th Street West, Altoona. So I'm a parent, I'm a teacher in the district, I have a passion for diversity, education, for social justice, and I wanted to be here tonight to thank you for bringing this issue up. It really means a lot to me and a lot of people and a lot of families and students in the district. While the number of transgender and gender nonconforming students in our district might be small, they're important and they deserve a positive school experience. And a little bit of statistics I found. 2001 study found in the United States 41% of transgender and gender nonconforming people had attempted suicide. And when you compare that to the national average of 4.6%, it's a serious problem. And a newer study in Canada found that transgender people who experience lower levels of anti-trans hate were 66% less likely to attempt suicide. It's so important for us as a school district to ensure the safety and fair treatment of transgender and gender nonconforming students. The 90-year-old mother of a transgender woman and activist said, "It's impossible to hate anyone whose story you know. We all care deeply about our students, and I know my colleagues would never intentionally do or say anything that would cause emotional harm to a student. But sometimes in the most subtle ways, because we don't know what we don't know, we inadvertently perpetuate stereotypes and ostracize students." And so I'd also like to suggest that the board put a plan in place to educate staff, and I mean teachers, administrators, anybody who comes in contact with students on all issues LGBTQ. When we're more informed, we can be more cognizant of the seemingly innocuous things we do or say that are insensitive or inadvertently send students the message that they're less important. I have experience with diversity education. I'm so passionate about this that I would gladly donate my time to help with that. I'm asking members of the board to vote yes on the changes to Policy 411 to add gender identity and gender expression to our non-discrimination and equal education statement. On a fundamental level, it's something we can do to make our schools safe for all students. But beyond that, it will help make it a priority to learn about gender so that we can better ensure the physical and emotional safety of these students and help them feel included and valued in our schools. Some argue that the policy change will be expensive, and maybe the board's already looked into that, I don't know. I know you've done a lot of educating it yourselves. You've taken a thoughtful, reasoned approach to this issue. And regardless of the dollar amount, I would suggest that the cost of voting no is far greater. If we as a district are able to make small changes that would make our schools safe for transgender and gender nonconforming students and potentially save lives, how could we choose not to do that? So a couple other things I'd like to comment on from
You've
previous
got about a minute left.
speakers.
Thanks.
Perfect. I think there's some misunderstanding. My understanding of the issue, and maybe you can speak to that when you discuss it as a board, is that nobody's making every single bathroom gender neutral. We're just talking about making sure that we make it clear that these students cannot be discriminated against. And that may include single stall bathrooms being available to students that maybe currently are not, so that they don't have to make a statement about their gender or be harassed based on what bathroom they choose to go in. Also, transgender people are not rapists. They're not predators. They're just people like you and me who are good people who want to live their lives. And they should not have to face discrimination at school. It should be a safe place for them. Also, teachers and schools would not be promoting this or teaching about it specifically, just making sure that we protect these students and they are safe while they're at our buildings. So thank you for bringing it forward, and I encourage you to vote yes.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Okay, I have Justin Wichman, and we have about 6 minutes left total. So if you're going to repeat statements, it would be nice if you just summarized. That would be great to help others. Thank you.
I'll be short. How many were left?
I got about 4 on my list.
4? Okay, well, I'll make this brief. My name's Justin Wickman. I'm from 2728 Edgewood Lane, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I was a former auditor and quality specialist for Nestle Nutrition, so I know a little bit about policies. It's a little different in the nutrition industry as it is in the education industry. And I would just ask that, because we don't know exactly how, or maybe you already do, maybe you already discussed it, how such a change would affect all current policies in place, to table the issue until you're able to look at all policies that are affected and be able to present that so that we can discuss it as a community. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, Dan Palachat, thank you.
Just make it 20 seconds.
Okay, all right. Well, you can take a little more than that.
No,
but-
that's all right. That's all right. I didn't really make a prepared statement. My name is Dan Palachat. I'm from 3417 Bryan Street in Eau Claire. While I don't presume to know all the details of the district's plan, as a Christian, I would hope that we try to understand each other's differences and not judge one another. With that said, I would hope that part of this process is that all children, all adults, all women, all men are considered in terms of safety and comfort. If a single stall bathroom, as she suggested, is part of the plan and that becomes available, then I'm okay with the board going forward. But if that is not part of the proposal, I do not see how any of us could support going forward with that plan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Eric Winecki? Is that how you say that? Do I have an Eric here? Oh, okay. Well, you signed up, so that's fine. Then I only have one left. That's Jay. I'm not sure. I can't really read it. Jay Lippert? It's Leppert. Okay, so you don't want to come up. All right, great. Well, you could have taken more time. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. I appreciate the attendance at our board meeting and the interest in what we're doing here tonight. Okay, that ends the public comments section. So now we have administrative reports. Superintendent, go ahead.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to review the events that are upcoming for the Board of Education. April 6th, 10 a.m. at the Administration Building, there will be a Budget Development Committee meeting. And on April 11th at 7 p.m., there will be a Parent Advisory Council meeting here at 7 p.m. at the Administration Building. Also on April 11th, from 4:30 until 8 p.m., there will be a meeting of the Certified Compensation Committee, and our facilitator, Bob Butler, will be present. That meeting will take place at the Administration Building. On April 12th, there are a series of Compensation Committee meetings, non-affiliated, the Hourly Compensation Committee, and both of those committees will also take place with our facilitator, Bob Butler. And the Charter Choice Committee will meet at 4 p.m. that day. All of these meetings will be held at the Administration Building. On April 13th at 10 a.m., there will be a Budget Development Committee meeting at 10 a.m., a Demographic Trends and Facilities meeting at 4 p.m., and those will be held here at the Administration Building. And on April 18th at 10 a.m., there will be a Policy and Governance Committee meeting and also a school board meeting at 7 p.m. Tomorrow is Election Day, so I'm sure that our president will be reminding you to vote. And we have 3 members of the board who will be traveling to Boston for the annual meeting of the National School Boards Association, and those meetings will be held April 8th through the 11th. So tonight we have some students to recognize, and I want to begin by recognizing Memorial Seniors Diane Hugh, William Jang, Philip Rame, and Grace Tate, and North Seniors Julia Olson and Jeremiah, is it Bunker? Is Jeremiah here? Well, let students, if you'd stand up, please, so we can see who you are. And I'm going to ask you to remain standing. These students have been selected among approximately 15,000 students nationwide to advance as finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Now, there were 1.5 million students who entered the competition. Our students will have an opportunity to continue in the competition for some 7,400 National Merit Scholarships worth approximately $32 million. To achieve finalist status, these students must have an outstanding academic record throughout high school, be endorsed and recommended by their high school principal, and earn high SAT scores. So congratulations to these very high achieving students. And thank you for coming out tonight to be recognized. We appreciate it.
We do.
Also, the selection committee for the Herb Cole Educational Foundation has announced recipients of the 2016 Herb Cole Foundation Awards for students, teachers, and principals. The $3,000 awards are being made to 100 teachers, 16 principals and their schools, and 184 graduating high school students. We are delighted to recognize a student and teacher in the district who were recipients of these outstanding awards. North Senior Brock Holman. Brock, are you here? If you'd stand up. Brock received an Initiative Award. Initiative recipients have demonstrated exceptional initiative in the classroom and have shown strong promise for succeeding in college and beyond, but have not yet achieved other academic-based scholarships. So congratulations, Brock. We're very, very excited for you. And we'd also like to recognize Flynn Elementary ELL teacher Katie Myers, who received a fellowship award. Is Katie here tonight? There she is. So fellowship recipients are educators who've been chosen for their superior ability to inspire a love of learning in their students, their ability to motivate others, and their leadership and service within and outside the classroom. So congratulations to both of you for being recognized by the Cole Foundation. And finally, as many of you know, we had quite a large event at Memorial over the weekend, and we received some special recognition from Special Agent John Millhouse, who particularly wanted us to recognize some of the people who worked at that event on Saturday, because it all had to be put together very quickly and took a great deal of time. And we wanted to recognize Daryl Peterson. We also wanted to recognize Ron Bowers, Chuck Gumness, and Roger Neff, and Dan Key and David Hediskin for handling some of the logistics and setup for that event. And I also personally want to thank Tim Lybum, Larry Summerfield, Trevor Colehep for their assistance and support because it required a number of meetings in preparation. So thank you very much for what you did. That's it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And on very short notice. Yes, I did want to remind everyone about the election on Tuesday. Don't forget to vote. We have 5 candidates for school board running for 4 open seats. Carolyn Barset, I know Carolyn is here. If you want to just raise your hand or something, Carolyn is running for school board. I don't know if the others, Erin Harder, are you here? Erin's here also. Erin Harder's running for school board. And I'm not sure if Jennifer Fager, she usually can't make it right now. Okay, so Jennifer Fager also is running, as well as myself and Chris Hambuck-Boyle. So I'll urge you, there's a lot to vote on. Vote for this Tuesday. Go out and vote. I want to remind board members and potential new board members, actually, who could be on the board. The Region 4 new school board member gathering is Thursday, April 21st from 7 to 9 p.m. at Durand High School, where we usually have it. Okay, so new school board members and current school board members are welcome to go to that. And also, again, a reminder of the 2016 Summer Leadership Institute, which is July 16th in Green Bay. And the last thing I wanted to remind board members about, again, about Terry Piper Thompson's Google Doc, about signing up for sessions. Just check it once in a while and see if there's things you can sign up to help educate the community about our financial situation. So we've got a list in there. So. Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Not that you want me to go into anything now in the next 3 weeks, but perhaps she could have Patty send that out to us just to remind us by email.
Sure, we can send it again. I keep the email up all the time, but yes, we could send it again as a link. Sure, we could do that. Okay, great. Student representative reports. Who would like to go first tonight? Looking at each other. It looks like Emily. Go ahead, Emily.
All right, so we had quite a bit of stuff that happened this weekend in particular. North hosted the solo ensemble this year, and we're pleased to say that 24 North pieces are going to state this year, 13 in band, 7 in choir, 3 in orchestra, and 1 piano piece as well. And also, we had powerlifting go to a team of powerlifters from North go to nationals, and Sam Kroll got second place in her class of weight, which is really exciting. And then our forensics team, we're happy to say, out of I think it was 69 or 70 groups, they got 7th place. Specifically, Tegan Strum got first on his prose piece, which is one of the biggest categories. He was competing with 122 other kids, and he got first place. Min Olsen got 5th place in poetry, and 4 others were recognized in the semifinals. Another thing that's happening is the school is working on the musical this year. Is Beauty and the Beast, and it will be showing April 15th, 16th, and 17th. We're really excited for how it's going to turn out. We did a lot of tech night last night, and we're hoping to do a lot more in the future. And then spring sports has started. And for prom, we are doing it at Florian Gardens, an evening in Paris.
Great, lots going on. Go ahead, Jason.
I want to congratulate Carrie Kemet for her acceptance into the National Security Language Initiative for Youth program, which is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. And basically, she receives full funding to go to China for 6 to 7 weeks during the summer to learn about Chinese culture and speak in Chinese. And recently, Memorial inducted 107 National Honor Society members, so they're new. I'm pretty excited about that. And last week, we had our last improv show. It was a very, very packed show on April Fool's Day. And on Friday, Japanese Club will be selling egg rolls during lunch. Student Council is planning on initiating a bike to school day and in the process of implementing a blood drive. So those are 2 events that will be coming up in the near future. And we also had Soul Ensemble, actually. And we had quite a few students make it to the state, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jason. Okay, board committee reports. Policy and governance, Commissioner Duex, go ahead.
Policy and Governance Committee met this morning for 2 hours. The committee reviewed Policy 458 on wellness, and the recommended changes that you'll see tonight are pursuant to the board discussion at the last meeting. If it is determined that this board-appointed committee, which is what is in the policy, then this should be added probably to Policy 185 board committees. So that needs a discussion. We did discuss the length of the policy again, but unlike typical policies, the content of this one is mandated by the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. Sue Brown, who runs the nutrition program, said the policy must measure the goals and make them available to the public. So we need to make sure that that's available. And our district, she said, is held to a much higher standard because of these rules. The committee talked about Policy 411 to be brought forward tonight for a vote. We're basing our proposal on Title IX in the Office of Civil Rights. Was there another one? Okay. We do not have a mandate for this policy, but we feel that we need to include transgender students in the policy to give them some privacy. The group looked at another policy, 382, Animals in the Schools policy, because some people are bringing their pets to work. We already have a policy about animals in the classroom, which do need permission to bring their animals in the classroom. But we made revisions to the policy, and we will be discussing that probably for the next board meeting. We also looked at the facility rental conditions for use and made adjustments to that, and this will also be discussed at the next Policy and Governance Committee. And we will finalize the facility rental conditions for use and request that it also be looked at by the Budget Committee. That's the end of the report.
Great, thank you. Okay, as usual, you guys are doing a lot. Budget Committee, Commissioner Zhang.
Yes, we had quite a few things on our agenda that day, which was on the 1st. We went over the proposed salary schedule for certified and hourly, the hourly groups. There were, I believe, 2 of each. We again ran out of time and couldn't cover billing rental fees, but that's going to be the first thing on our agenda next time.
Okay, thank you. And I think that covers all the committees that met recently. Okay, great. Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle, our legislative update, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to cover the 2 bills that, there were several. I will go over some more next time. March 31st, WASB reported 2 bills that they actually have helped to craft with the legislators. Assembly Bill 664, authored by Representative Joel Kitchens, a Republican from Sturgeon Bay, and Senator Devin LaMahieu, the Republican from Oostburg, prohibits the Department of Health Services from requiring a mental health clinic or a licensed treatment professional to designate a school site as a clinic office in order to provide outpatient mental health services at the school. It also requires DHS, the Department of Health Services, to provide medical assistance reimbursement to licensed treatment professionals for mental health services provided at a school to the extent federal law allows such reimbursement, regardless of whether the school site is designated as a clinic office and regardless of whether the licensed treatment professional is employed by a contractor of or affiliated with the clinic. And the other one was, and this doesn't necessarily apply to Eau Claire, but I think it's good to know, they did some work with sparsity aid for some of our rural schools. They adjusted the sparsity age eligibility to allow Crivets and Spring Valley school districts to continue to receive sparsity aid even though they're higher than the cap that was set. The current new law also permanently raises the current 725 pupil cap on school districts, which allowed them to stay within the sparsity aid formula. The rest of these I think I can put into a note and send it to you by email. That be okay?
Sure, okay.
Yep, okay.
Commissioner Johnson.
Does the mental health bill affect what we're doing in Eau Claire at all? Do we know that yet?
We do have mental health, we have a collaborative with
Right, but does it affect how we're doing things? Do we know that yet? Maybe
this
we-
just got passed, so I don't
Okay.
know if we've even, I mean, I think,
So Superintendent Hardeback probably a report in the near future on whether it has effect on what we're doing.
Good question.
yeah, that's what happens. We end up, when legislate, then we have to, yeah, so thanks.
Great, thank you, thank you. All right, now we have on our consent resolution agenda. These are items that have been provided ahead of time. We've looked at it, and they're not either controversial or they're regular routine items of some kind. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 14th, 2016. I would entertain a motion to approve the Human Resources Employment Report. I would entertain a motion to approve the revisions to Policy 222, Administrative Contracts. I would entertain a motion to approve the approval of CISA 10 contract.
Pull that one, please.
Pull, okay. Check my minutes here. And so we have the first 3 minutes, Human Resources Employment Revisions to Policy 222. Do I have a motion to approve those?
I so move.
Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Duax. Do I have a second? I have a second, Commissioner Luganbill. Is there any discussion on these? Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I asked our HR director if we know yet how the number of resignations and retirements in this HR reports compares to previous years and the reasons for people leaving prior to retirement. And she does not have that information yet, but we'll share it as soon as she has it.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle, you pulled the CISA 10 contract.
I pulled the CISA 10 contract because I work there, so I would like to vote on it separately. Thanks.
Yes, understood. Do I have a motion, or motion to approve the CISA 10 contracts from anybody?
Move.
Motion from Commissioner Zhang, second from Commissioner Vu. Any other discussions on that? Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I didn't have as much time to prepare. I was in court all day, and so if somebody can just give me the Cliff Note version, are there any changes to the contract other than maybe tweaking amounts of what we do? I mean,
Go
there's
ahead,
no-
Jim.
The one item that's not on there that has been on there in the past is the alternative education for our off-campus program. The model has changed. In the past, we used to have to pay into the model and then have an additional charge per student. CISA is moving to a new model where it's for all parties, it's just charging per student rather than like a joiner fee, if you will. So that's why that does not exist on the contract this year as it has in the past. We will have a separate side contract with CISA for that service. But other than that, there's a small adjustment in some pricing, but most of the remaining costs are very similar to the and services to the past. We did have a special meeting actually just this past week with CISA with their Director of Instructional Services to review all the elements, and quite frankly, we're getting a pretty good deal for each of the pieces that we are buying into.
Oops, sorry, thank you.
Okay, good question. So, Secretary Iverson, if we could do a roll call vote on this, please, unless there's no further discussion. Commissioner Duex, did you have a question? Okay, go ahead. Okay. All right, let's do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle? Abstain. Okay, just get that one. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler?
Yes.
Commissioner Vu?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean?
Yes.
Commissioner Duex? Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, on to our individually considered resolutions. First, we have the RFP for the community survey. You'll see the description of that in, maybe we can pull it up, of the agenda item. This is to award a contract to Springstead to survey the community regarding the referendum. And you can see there's an upper amount on there. We discussed this last time, and it looks like the amount's the same, $18,230 to Springstead. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion to put this on the floor from any board member?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle to put this on the floor.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Zhang. Is there any discussion about this contract from anybody? Commissioner Duex?
It does say up to,
Right.
okay,
Yep, not to exceed.
right.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle.
I just want to bring up for people that were not here for our last discussion that we vetted this through committee and lots of hard work at looking at how we arrived at this using Springstead for the survey.
Good point. We had looked at several vendors, actually, right? A small committee had done that. Okay. Seeing there's no further discussion, I think we'll do a roll call vote on this, please, also.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Sure.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler?
Yes.
Commissioner Vu?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean?
Yes.
Commissioner Duex? Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is the revisions to policy 411, equal educational opportunities. So either I'll take a motion to put it on the floor, or I'll take some discussion.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Luganbill, a second from Commissioner Johnson to put the policy on the floor. So discussion. Any comments? It's yours on to. Go ahead, Commissioner Luganbill.
So I wanted to take a moment to provide some background on this and what brought us to tonight. I provided some of this information at the last board meeting, but I wanted to do it again with some new faces in the audience. So thank you all for coming and being engaged with us on this topic. You'll find some sheets over there on the table, and I think most of you grabbed them, but they have, the first one is some definitions of gender identity, gender expression, transgender, transition, and gender nonconforming. These are all the common definitions, and I thought it might be helpful to provide those. There has been some, I think, misinformation out there regarding this and what it means, particularly through some of the radio stations, but also just through word of mouth, as usually happens. But I did want to point you to this other document I brought out here, which is kind of where this all began. So the Office of Civil Rights in the U.S. Department of Education issued official guidance, which made it very clear to school districts, public school districts, that transgender students must be protected from discrimination in compliance with Title IX. So what is Title IX? Title IX is a federal civil rights law, and it prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded education programs and activities. So specifically what the guidance states, and there are links on here, you can view all of this. What the guidance states is that this prohibition extends to claims of discrimination based on gender identity or failure to conform to stereotypical notions of masculinity or femininity, and the Office for Civil Rights accepts such complaints for investigation. So in terms of what guidance is, the Department of Education issued that as a what they call significant guidance document under the Office of Management and Budget for the White House. And so what the Office of Civil Rights does is they'll issue this kind of guidance and other policy guidance to provide recipients, and that's us as a school district receiving Title IX dollars, with information to assist us in meeting the obligations, providing members of the public with information about their rights under the civil rights laws, and implementing regulations that it enforces. So the Office for Civil Rights legal authority is based on those laws and regulations. So there's information on that, and I would recommend checking it out. It's interesting. One is 53 pages and one is 36 pages, so sit tight for that. But I also wanted to possibly address things that were brought up tonight. We've had some citizens write letters to the editor. One took pen to paper and cited the American College of Pediatricians, which has also been mentioned by a few speakers. I do want to clearly err on this, that this group has between 60 and 200 members across the whole country. And you don't have to take my word for it, but it is designated as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. That is available to you. Others have cited the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a partisan organization. One thing that I found very interesting when I did a little digging, because I have researched this topic, is that the Alliance Defending Freedom actually helped fight to preserve sections of the Belize Criminal Code, which recommends a 10-year prison sentence for homosexual acts. So they sent some of their people over there across the way to advocate for that. But I have read every document that has been sent my way. I know many of us have taken the time to speak with you on the phone, to read your emails, and we do appreciate it. I first brought up this issue in May in the Policy and Governance Committee regarding adding these students to our books. Really the goal to build on current practice, working individually with students, with their counselor, with their educators, to make the individual accommodations that we can. Whether that's working on pronouns in the classroom, making a single-stall restroom available, which has been done, really working towards ensuring equity, safety, and privacy for these students, but for all of our students. Certainly, the accountability on this is with administration and the school board. And we also have to work, obviously, as you had mentioned, Becky, with our leaders and staff within district buildings to ensure success. To state, as some have, that we have no control over rules is based on a false premise, and also does not take into account how our governance works. We're accountable to each other as a district. So we've received training and resources from Safe Spaces, the Family Support Center, the Risk Management Consortium that we belong to, and other agencies and organizations. And I'm sure administration could attest that there will be further guidance from other agencies, including DPI, that I'm sure we will look to as well. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm actually not going to go into the science of this, but I will refer you to 4 resources. The Journal of Sexual Medicine, the Journal of Psychiatric Research, the American Medical Association, and the American Psychological Association. I should add that the American Psychological Association declassified transgender identity as a mental disorder 4 years ago in 2012, in the same way that they did with homosexuality in 1973. So I think that that parallel teaches us that social acceptance often lags behind scientific fact and analysis. I also want to talk, we made sure to get these on the table. This is a very helpful document, and it's something that's going to be guiding us moving forward as a district. And it's our new strategic plan. I would point you to strategic priority number 2. So student social and emotional growth. Number 1 is to maintain safe and supportive learning environments. And number 2 is to provide experiences and instruction that addresses the needs and the growth of the whole child. That's what we're in the business of as a school district. And I think what we're doing here, we're doing in a measured way. I think we've done our homework. I've certainly done my homework. I know many of us on this board have been reading about this topic and taking it quite seriously, as you all do. One thing I wanted to reference, because some people have asked what really Title IX means and what this means having guidance, is a resolution agreement between the Downey Unified School District and the Office of Civil Rights. And this was done in order to resolve the issues raised. After they had come down with their guidance, a student filed a complaint. And so they came to this agreement between the entities. And I'm not going to go through it all. It includes a consultant and a whole lot of other areas that the district had to add. But if I go to the policy section, Section 3A, and I can send you this if you want a copy, but there are a number of these agreements online, just available on Google. 3A, this was their recommendation. The district will continue to review its policies, procedures, and regulations applicable to or governing student participation in all programs and activities offered by the district, and make any necessary revisions or modifications to policy to ensure that all students, including students who do not conform to sex stereotypes, are provided an equal education opportunity to participate in all such programs and activities in a manner that does not discriminate based on sex, gender identity, or gender expression. And you'll notice that that last phrase is almost exactly what we're proposing here. But this was a signed, sealed, and delivered agreement with the federal government. I think what I'm hoping we'll be able to make a reality is just that proposed change. And policy, as I think you know, is our domain as a school board after hearing our different reports. I can tell you as a school board member, I know in my brain and in my heart that this is the right thing to do. I think we're doing the right thing for students, for the students that this will impact, and for the majority of students. I've heard their stories, I've heard their passions. This means a lot to a lot of kids. And I think we're also doing the right thing here for the integrity of our system as a whole. History will be kind to us tonight, I think. I think just as history is kind to the school board that added ramps and elevators and programs to be ADA compliant, just as history will be kind to the school board that stood up for an openly gay educator that was facing a public witch hunt, just as history has been kind to district leaders who stepped up to the plate and hired staff and implemented programs to serve our Hmong refugees that came to the Chippewa Valley. As a school district, we serve, we teach, we value, and we protect all students. And that's what tonight's vote is about. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Buck-Boyle.
Joe, very well said, and I'd like to add what you said is the miracle of public schools. We serve all children and their families.
Commissioner Johnson.
Oh, Joe, I'm so proud of you. Just a few years ago, you were just a student rep. That was so tactful and so informative and so well thought. So I just want to go back to I feel like I was in a little bit of an alternate universe, as we all were in Eau Claire, the past several days, but also, just today and how this all came together. Because I, kept going back to the policy we're actually considering. All we're doing is adding gender identity and gender expression to the long list of people we aren't going to discriminate against. No person shall be discriminated against for these reasons: sex, race, religion, color, etc., etc., etc. We're adding another group, and I can't possibly think of a group that you could propose adding that I would want to say, no, I'd like to discriminate against them. Like that, when you put that into context, it just seems so ridiculous. It also really made me think about this past weekend, and I warned some people I'm gonna channel Commissioner Wogan for a little bit and talk about my personal life. So I used to teach high school social studies, and in the late 1990s in Altoona High School. And when we were learning about, in history, the Civil Rights Movement, they couldn't fathom that my parents' generation discriminated against black people because they were black. And I'm sure there's probably people in this room that can recall having that discussion, that we actually had to say, we're not going to discriminate against black people. They can marry white people and they can go to school with white people. And my students couldn't really wrap their heads around that. And they said to me, well, who do you think that our children will have this conversation about us? And they'll say, I don't get it. Why do they discriminate against? And I said, you know who I think it's going to be? I think it's going to be homosexuals. I think in your lifetime, you're going to be sitting here and reflecting on the fact that we don't get to discriminate against them anymore. And we, in fact, now have gay marriage. And so when we're talking about discriminating against people who have gender expression or gender identity that doesn't conform to what we believe they were born with, some people are born with both parts, whether what we think they should express their gender identity. I mean, this is just the next step of people that we think are different than us, and I think this, in another generation, it'll be, why do we care? So that takes me back to this whole weekend of rallies and, the election tomorrow. My own son, several months ago, he's 16, says to me, at first, the really obnoxious comments in the media by some of the candidates was kind of amusing, because he's a 16-year-old, he thinks it's funny. But he says, it's actually kind of frightening, some of the things that they're saying. And I got a text message from my neighbor on Friday, and she said this very same thing. I love that my kids have realized on their own, without us discussing politics in our house, that people who are speaking are scary, and that we don't allow our school children on our playgrounds to say the things they do and to act the way they do. And when we create an environment where we teach our children to be tolerant and compassionate and courageous and respectful, we are doing our job. And so this brings me to my very last point. So I went to one of the 3 rallies on Saturday and went inside, and my son went to a different rally and went inside. And then I went to another rally and then declined the invitation to go inside, but stood outside with my sign that said, "Love trumps hate." And I really believe, from what I saw that day and what I've seen leading up to this meeting, that we can teach our children hate and fear, or we can teach our children love. And I was moved to tears because the protesters that were carrying signs that said things like "Love trumps hate" and "Free hugs" and "No hate in Eau Claire" and all of these wonderful things was mostly high school students, maybe college students. They all look kind of young to me. And I walked up to them. They actually had this portable speaker, and when they were hearing chants from the people in line to see the rally that "Build the wall" and other such obnoxious things, they played love songs. Beatles, Beyonce, "This Land Is Your Land." They had all sorts of, I assume going through, somebody's playlist. And they sang love songs, and they wished people to drive safe, and they literally gave free hugs to people who were attending the rally. And I was so moved that those were our students. And I asked them, were you students in the Eau Claire Public Schools? He said, no, we weren't students. We are students at this school. And I was so proud because we have done our job to teach this generation to love and to accept and be open to differences and not be afraid.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Do you have other comments from other board members? Commissioner Zhang.
You know, I have to agree with everything that Joe and Wendy has said. And I'd like to add a little. I am a member of a protected class, and I can tell you that there's still a lot of barriers, even being protected. I read the research saying that a transgender or somebody who does not conform, their chances of suicide or depression, like we one of the speaker has referenced to earlier, that is something I also went through as far as my research. And we always talk about all kids, and these are also our kids. I want everybody to remember that as we move forward. And I am so thankful that somebody was able and was willing to fight for my protected class at one time.
Commissioner Vu.
It's ironic with what I'm about to say. I was born out of sight of the United States, but I pretty much grew up in Eau Claire. And I encountered situations where minority issues or interests were trumped by the mainstream's value. And it would be the right thing to defend that all life are equal. But this very topic, I believe, relates to the original constitutions, which test the ground. All men are created equal. It wasn't equal. The law had to be tested again and again until the different rules were created to override the interpretation of all men are created equal. I believe we have in our war community core value, which is interpreted based on the majority of that rule, that government body. The federal create rule. States were afraid, state is afraid to implement that rule. It got passed down to the local. The local is made out of majority value. Yet this very night, I'm afraid we may not have that sufficient input or feedback that reflect what the community values are. We have 9 speakers speaking against, 2 speaking postponing the topic, 1 speaking for. This community is bigger than that. I don't think our district is ready, having the knowledge, having the courage, and having the resource to implement such rule that is not backed by the state. The federal government is good at creating rule, but is bad at accommodating the resource to implement such rule. I'm quite passionate about the idea that all men are created equal, and that one person or a few's rights should be observed because they're equal value to the mainstream. However, I don't think the district is ready to come up with the resource to implement any challenge of this new added class to the rule. For example, a rule is created, someone will challenge. And if they were to challenge with a base, that require district upgrade its requirement, which involves money. Are we ready to do that? The next question would be, if we were to make a decision tonight, it's based on what? Fact or fear? Or value, assumption, construct ideas that has no resource to support. Like I said earlier, all men are created equal. I live in Eau Claire over 37 years. Have I seen that? I believe we are good at abstract idea, but implementation is lagging. And I don't think the district is ready to make a decision without knowing the implication of that decision. I move that we postpone the issue until further understanding of the prevalence of the issue and sufficient resource to accommodate the new change.
So I have a motion on the floor to postpone indefinitely or till like a certain date?
Until state come with more concrete
I'll take that as
guidance.
I'll take that as indefinitely for now. But we have a motion to postpone. Do I have a second from any other board member to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, we do have a second to postpone this issue. I'm just going to clarify something here, and I have a question based on your motion. Just to read it again, it says, "No person shall be denied admission to any public school or be denied participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be discriminated against in any curricular, extracurricular, pupil services, recreational, or other program or activity because of the students," and it lists the classes, including sexual orientation and so forth. So my question is, are there any additional resources that are required for that? And I don't know if Superintendent, if you can answer that, or if anyone else can, but as far as I am aware of, I have not heard that it would cost any additional resources. So if there are, please let me know, or if you are not sure, please let me know, or anything significant, obviously. Sure, Superintendent. I saw you reach out for it, sorry.
You know, at this point, because we don't have guidelines from the state, it's hard to say if additional resources would be needed. When we look at the other protected classes, certainly we accommodate, you know, for their needs under our policies and programs, but we don't know, you know, what those guidelines will be coming from the state. So it's hard to say whether we would need additional resources.
And is it agreed that it's possible that the civil rights, U.S. civil rights could address this through what happened to other districts, correct? That we would have to address it at some point.
They've been doing these agreements.
So they have done several agreements, okay. Go ahead.
And that's for districts that do not address it. And bear in mind that the guidance came 2 years ago.
Okay, so some have incurred financial losses because they had to address that after the fact, perhaps. Okay. Other comments or questions on the postponement from board members? And otherwise, I'll call the question if we do not.
I think, connected to Dr. Harbeck's question.
Go ahead, yes.
Is we have not done a facilities audit in the event that we would, if we have to make some modifications for, in accommodations for students. And again, following Dr. Harbeck's comment, based on guidance from the state, we would be able to have a better idea as to whether or not that we'd have to make any physical accommodations to our facilities.
My understanding is we do have a fair amount of single-cell bathrooms in almost every school, correct?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we've done an audit though to ensure that, I mean, again, to make sure that we can fully comply. Yeah. I don't know if Larry, is Larry?
I don't know if Larry's here. I put him on the spot. I. Okay. Other comments or questions on that with board members? Okay, so this vote is not on the resolution. It is on the resolution to postpone it indefinitely. All those in favor say aye to postpone it.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. No?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So motion fails to postpone, so we are back to our original motion on the table, which is the policy 411. Yes, Commissioner Duax.
There have been some amazing things said here tonight. I'm sorry. I just want to say that I grew up in Texas, where there's a lot of discrimination, a lot of bigotry, even in my own family. I have known many, many people who have been discriminated against. And I don't want to see that with anyone. And I don't think we're getting ourselves in hot water. I don't think we're getting ourselves backed into a corner. I think we're trying to be fair and loving. And I'm also a Christian. And I believe in loving everyone. And that's really hard to do, as you know. Because not everybody's real likable. I better stop while I'm ahead.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, I will call the question. Commissioner Zhang.
Let's see. It would seem to me that the bathroom issue became, well, the potential issue with bathrooms became the talk of this policy, when again it is supposed to be about equity and fairness. All right, and if it's bathroom that we're having issues with, I think we can move forward. And when we do move forward, I think we could monitor this as we go forward, so it will meet the standards that our community would like.
Absolutely. Board members can always ask for a report. You can always find information on how things are implemented and keep track of it. Absolutely. That's your right to do so. Commissioner Johnson.
That reminds me, in the 1970s, when there was this big push to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, that there was the same fear-mongering that by giving women equal rights, that somehow we were all going to be using the same bathrooms in the malls and the schools and the same locker rooms, and clearly that hasn't happened. So that reminded me of my childhood.
We won't talk about how long that'll go. Okay, do I have any other comments or questions? And I think we'll do a roll call vote on this, please.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler?
Yes.
Commissioner Vu?
Nope.
Commissioner Zhang?
Yes.
Commissioner Duax?
Yes.
Motion passes with 5 votes. We need 5 for policy changes and so forth, so motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Thank you for the audience that has participated through the Public Comments Forum. Appreciate it very much. We'll watch and see how this goes. Okay, we will now move on to Policy 458, revisions to Policy 458, which is the school wellness. We had some questions about that last time, especially about the length of it. So maybe we can pull that up. And in the meantime, I would accept either any discussion about it or a motion to put it on the floor. Yes.
I'm happy to make the motion. I just did want to add on to what Commissioner Duax.
On the last topic?
No, on to what she'd spoken to in the board committee report.
Oh,
about
yeah, yeah.
this policy.
Oh, sure, go ahead, yes.
And how we, we did double check it, and some district policies were actually much longer than this, that they went with. So we're going with what we're seeing as the mandated language, and we're adding some things throughout this that are more personalized, but for the most part, this is following the mandate language. And with that, I would move approval.
So we have a motion to place revisions to policy 458 on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Zong. So this policy is on the floor. Any other comments? I actually had well, just to get it started, I had one question kind of. I did read the guidance that you had provided, and I noticed they used the word policy, and it just kind of occurred to me, I wonder if they use the word policy different than we do. Meaning, like, if they say policy, if it's okay if it's in our rules, you know, if it's just a terminology thing. Do you see what I'm saying? That was a question of mine. If their word policy meant the same as our word policy, right? That was kind of my question. Go ahead, Superintendent.
You know, based on the conversation that was held last time with the board and the length of the policy, we did ask Sue Brown to go back and to review other policies that from similar school districts, and she did do that review. And Sue, do you want to come up and tell them what you discovered about the length of the policies that you saw?
I also want to know if they had to do a first reading of all of them.
Well, I did, of the policies that I looked at in Wisconsin, one was 20 pages. So I'm kind of hoping that, that we don't have to read that out loud today. But certainly the policies that I reviewed were similar in length. They may have contained some things that were not similar to ours, but many of the things are similar to ours. And just to reiterate that the topics in the policy are required from USDA about the wellness policies.
Great, thank you. And again, I just still wonder about the ambiguity of policies versus rules, and if their policy means the same as ours. And
Yeah,
I know you don't know that either.
No,
but-
I don't know that either.
So-
And there are board policies. I went into other school district websites, and many of them had very long policies as well.
Sure. Okay. So anything else from board members? Any questions, comments? I noticed a few changes that I wanted to see. So other board members on this. Like, for example, the end, I'm glad you changed about who approves the change in the policy, because it has to be
Yep.
the P&G board, for example. So,
And I appreciated your comments last time.
yeah, that was, Commissioner Johnson, that was good. Yes, Commissioner Duax.
Oh, were you first? Well, we talked about the wellness committee, and that one is for staff, and we felt there probably should be one for students, and that's probably deserves a discussion by the board. And maybe even the folks on the wellness committee would like to offer a suggestion for that.
Yes, because that's all staff right now on there, right, on the wellness committee. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
And
Wellness committee, that's all staff right now, right? Are there citizens on the wellness? Holistic.
Sorry, I get confused because you're using the word wellness, and there's multiple different groups that talk about wellness.
Okay, so I'm confused now, too.
So there's a district-wide holistic committee, which has wellness committee representatives on it, but then there's an actual district wellness committee.
Oh, okay.
But we felt like we need to talk about this because all the committees will be appointed in May, and we can't wait too long.
So this is a different wellness committee in here that you're suggesting with board members on it or something, is what you're thinking?
We had that discussion in
Go ahead.
we had that discussion in Policy and Governance today. Can you?
This is the student wellness policy. So this is really addressing the student wellness, and, you know, certainly there could be a component, there could be crossover between the two, but what I'm proposing and what USDA is requiring is student wellness.
Go ahead.
And the other thing was the makeup of the group that participated with Sue on putting this together for student wellness. There is a crossover with FIED and some of those entities. So we were cognizant of that and really want to see how we can make sure that the communication between the groups where it needs to be, that does happen. But we're thinking it should be two committees because their goals are a little bit different, but the awareness level needs to be there. So we're not quite sure how to do that yet.
And I think as time goes on, we'll become more aware, and I think there will be a natural progression of both committees.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Commissioner Duax.
I would also like to suggest that that students be allowed to be represented on the committee and have input if possible.
I think that's an excellent recommendation.
Okay. Is this, before we vote on this, is there interest in the board to explore it? Maybe get a recommendation from administration on a wellness committee, student wellness committee? Because that's what you're proposing, that we put something in our policy, is it 185? 185 on that, and I think it'd be nice if we had a recommendation of what the makeup of that should be. Commissioner Luganville.
Commissioner Duex, are you talking about making sure that students sit on the ECISD Wellness Committee that we're creating, or are you suggesting that we create a new committee just for students?
No, just represented on on Sue Brown's Wellness
Okay,
Committee.
yeah. On
There's
Sue Brown.
so many-
We're gonna put your name in here, Sue.
It's been my dream.
We are gonna have to think of names for all these, okay.
So if that's what you're suggesting, then we're kosher, because I know we added students to it. I think
It is on the last page under policy monitoring and implementation.
Tell
I
me
know, I
where-
appreciate that.
where is that? Yeah, go ahead, where is that?
I think you had
Last
suggested it in
page.
the first place.
Oh, I see, wellness committee membership will represent that part
Right, and it
there.
does include
Okay,
students, right.
okay. Now, Commissioner Havenboy.
The other thing in Sue Brown's stead, she is the nutrition person who took this on, and there's many components within this wellness policy that is not necessarily her purview. So that's kind of why the committee would help with that, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yes, I will do the nutrition piece, but when it comes to PE and nutrition education in the classrooms, that's beyond my purview.
Okay, any other comments? We'll have to work on that somehow. All right, we'll move forward on that. That's you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of the changes that were made, addresses almost all of my concerns, and I promised to be oppositional tonight, so I'm still going to be oppositional. I know, that's a surprise, right?
We know this is your last hurrah.
No, I think I have to come to one more. I'm supposed to come to one more. But anyway, no, thank you very much for addressing almost all of my concerns. But I'm still going to vote no. Not to be just oppositional. I just want to draw attention to the physical education section. I actually got a comment last week again. Why aren't we taking advantage of that, state program where we can allow our high school athletes who are already exercising 2 to 3 hours a day to substitute that activity for PE? And I said, well, you'll have to talk to the people who are going to be on the school board in the future because I have no control over it. But I'm still opposed to that. We are still requiring 3 semesters for every single high school student.
Is that required? That's a requirement in the state statutes, I believe, is it not?
The state allowed an exemption to meet one of those semesters with high school athletic participation.
Good point. Commissioner Boyle.
I agree with that as well. I just remember I had a swimmer who swam 85 hours a day and still had to go to Fayette. So, where else could we address that, though, as a board?
Well, it was brought to the board when the law first passed, and it would have been before all of you except Catherine and I think were here. So if the board were interested in reconsidering that, my son lifts weights year-round, even when he's not in football, and then he has to go to Fayette and lift weights, and he actually got docked participation points because he's like, you know what, I lifted already once today. It actually wouldn't be healthy for me to lift weights again. And in 16-year-old style, he sassed his student teacher, and that's fine. He can get in trouble for that, for being sassy, but really, I don't want him lifting weights twice a day. So if the board were inclined, you could put that on a future agenda item. I can tell you that the teachers union is opposed to it because, it would mean possibly less Fayette teachers. But I think you could do that through attrition, so.
Could We had a small work group, and Kari Winkler was the PE teacher that was on the work group that worked on this policy. Would it be all right if she came up and addressed that issue? It's beyond my.
It's up to the rest of the board. I'm gonna vote no with that in there, and it's certainly something they could consider asking as an agenda item in the future if they were so inclined, because Chu and I are not gonna be around to talk about it.
Yeah, but I would like that answer if
Okay, we'll put it on as agenda item. Oh, I see. Oh,
Is
as in
Kari
tonight
is
you
here.
mean? Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
if-
okay.
if-
Oh, sure.
Yeah, if it's all right with the board.
Sure. I mean, it's germane. It's in
Okay,
the
thank
it's in
you.
the policy. So okay.
Thank you. I don't have any formal presentation.
Yeah, no, that's
Just
okay.
in talking with Sue last time, I felt kind of bad that some questions came up and I wasn't here. And so I actually was part of the last presentation when it came before the board. Anne Frankie presented on behalf of some of us that worked on the presentation for the board. Indeed, it is a policy that some districts have looked into, some have addressed. The board at the time made the decision to kind of hold off to see, what was going to happen in the future. I would be willing to put together some information that highlights what our FIAD program brings to athletes that's above and beyond what our student athletes get. And there was some conversation last time in the board, trying to think of the board member, but he in high school was a wrestler, and so we talked a little bit about, did you learn healthy nutrition and fitness and things like that through your wrestling program, and if that was your only, physical activity and your only education for that piece, is that something that you were able to carry on through you to your adult life? And I think that with, at Memorial High School, we have a $15,000 grant that we have heart rate monitors, and we're teaching kids how to exercise at a rate that helps them to be healthy. And those are opportunities that are very enlightening even to our student athletes that really can enhance their athletic performance if they understand some of the benefits that they can get from their physical education program. So, like I said, I certainly can put together something for a future meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to call the question. This is going longer. That's what she was asking. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll do a roll call vote on this one too, just in case.
Commissioner Humbach-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler?
Yes.
Commissioner Wu?
Yes.
Commissioner Zhang?
yes.
Commissioner Duex?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will now adjourn to committee. We have two items on there. One is to discuss our July meeting date. We had discussed in agenda setting about, and you're going to have to help me a little bit with this, about having a board meeting with a work session July 18th. You want to go ahead with that?
Yes, when we look at our timeline for the referendum planning, the board would need to have sometime in July a work session to discuss and determine the scope of the referendum. And by that time, you should have all the information you need in order to do that. You will have, gotten the results back from the survey. You should by that time know what the cost of the compensation salary structure will be and what you've determined to do with that. So you should be able to develop your question. And I think probably the format for that discussion will be that Abby, and working with the consultants, will develop several questions based on the conversations you've had leading up to that, and then it will be up to you to have some conversation, determine what the scope is, come to some agreement of how you'd like to structure those questions or which questions you'd like to put out. We talked a little bit about the scheduling of that meeting, and as you know, the first meeting in July would fall right around July 4th.
It is July.
Yes, right, would fall right around that July 4th date. And then in the following week, we know that some staff will be on vacation and that kind of thing. Those first 2 weeks in July people tend to try to use both of those weeks for their vacation. or either the week preceding the July 4th or the week after. So we were proposing July 18th as a work session evening.
And just so the board understands, if I remember right, we have to vote by August 22nd, a formal vote on it, correct?
Yes,
Is that
and
what
what we're thinking is that you would have the first meeting in October to,
August, you mean?
I mean, October, I'm
August,
sorry,
August,
August.
yes,
I'm looking at the timeline and I'm looking down at October. You would have the first meeting in August, and then by August 15th, which would be the second board meeting, you would be able to vote. And
Right.
that would give you the 80 to 70 days before the election to set your,
Right, by statute,
Mhm.
right, right. So just, so what we're saying to the board is July 18th, the work session to formulate the question. That would give us August 1st to more in a committee session to discuss it more if we had to and modify it. And in an August 15th date to vote formally and approve it as a resolution. So I guess two questions for the board. One, does the 18th work for you? It's pretty far advanced. I know some of you won't be here, so it doesn't matter to you. I don't know if I will be here, but hopefully. And then also, is that enough? Would you want, because there's 2 weeks between 18th and August 1st. We could conceivably schedule a special session just to talk about the referendum. If we didn't make enough progress July 18th, we could still do that. And I know you'll be gone the last week of July, correct, right after that, but, so, yeah, Commissioner Luganville.
I'm not sure if this is the time to ask it, but for that meeting in July, would that be when we could get some clarification on the legalities of what you can and can't put in a question? Because in terms of,
yes, and I would anticipate that you would have an opportunity to ask those questions in June.
Okay.
Because what we would hope to do is to bring some sample questions to you.
and the reason I ask is I know some have done, they'll actually put wording like supporting stuff like that, and not just the numbers. And so what kind of a balance do you have to strike, kind of thing?
Yeah, and you can correct, I don't have the timeline, but you correct me. I think, we would think like late May, early June, budget would be looking at that, and then bring it to the board to discuss that kind of thing. And then in July 18th, hopefully have a little firmer questions actually in a work session to go through with the consultant and with Abby. Oh, you went over there, sorry. So does that sound okay? We'll plan on July 18th for those that'll be here.
Do you have the time for that kind of block of time we're going to work in work session? Same as at 7 o'clock, or do we want a longer work session?
Good question. I mean, we have to take care of some business every month, paying bills and so forth. We probably, usually there's not that much on the agenda otherwise in July. So I would think we could schedule a pretty big block. You're wondering like how long?
I'm just wondering if we want to start a little earlier.
Oh, and that's possible too. Kind of knocks off the public what they're used to attending board meetings, but I don't know if in July that matters or not.
My suggestion would be as we get closer to that date, and you see whether or not, how much, time you think you'll need, that should guide the start time.
That's a good idea. Okay, sound good? So we want to give a warning about that. Okay, great. Any public comment on that? It's not a big topic, but we allow public comment on committee reports, so. Yes, you can come up here to speak to it. So on this topic.
My question was not on this.
No, it has to be on this topic. It's on this one.
Can I make a comment?
It's got to be on this.
Sometime about some other.
You can always, through email or through calls, you can call the board members.
I thought that there's a provision for us to make public comments before the voting on 4/11.
No, by our policy, we allow public comment in the beginning, and then we allow it after committee report items, not during resolutions. So you can do it. That's when we allow that. So. Okay, great. So last item is board's timeline for implementation of salary structure. So we had some questions came up in budget, and Abby, you want to take it away with that for now? So while she's working on that, there's really two issues here. One is when to implement a new compensation structure. what would the board like, what's feasible, as well as if the board is interested in implementing one or more step increases as part of it or separately, that discussion also. Okay. And again, you're not committed to anything in the report, but we would like to get some ideas and feedback from you on this.
All right, so to start our discussion tonight, we really have a couple of questions that we wanted to address the board with. The first one is the timing of implementation, just like Rich had suggested. The hiring season is beginning. And so there's really three choices when we're looking at it. July 1st of 2016, referendum dependent, retroactive to July 1st. And the estimated disbursement to employees would be January to February of 2017, or postponing entirely until July 1st of 2017. Our second question would be, how much time does the board need to consider the options? We plan to bring forth a committee report with the proposed salary structures on May 2nd, with approved contract language, 2 proposed salary schedules per group, and then we would anticipate a board vote on May 16th, but we wanted some confirmation that that timeline is enough time for the board to be able to review it and vote. What are the board's expectations? If we look at the proposed salary schedules as of today, where they're at with the committees, just to transition or cost of a new salary schedule, going from the old salary schedule to the new, it would add an additional $1.7 million to our budget. To honor 1 year of service or 1 step, we'd add an additional $1.2 million. 2 steps would add another $1.2 million. 3 steps would add another $1.1. 4 steps would add another $1 million. 5 steps would add almost $1 million. So a grand total of $7.4 million to our current budget. We wanted to talk about implications to fund balance. So our current projection from Dan Vandewater for 15-16 is $3.9 million. If we were to implement the new salary schedule for 16-17, we'd be looking at a $1.7 million additional costs. And then that would bring our, the fund balance recommendation percentage from the auditors is 25 to 33%. As of June 30th, we were already at 25.2%. By putting in an additional $1.7 million, we would project that that would reduce our fund balance percentage to 20%. If we look at the full amount going against fund balance, we start with the 15-16 deficit projection of $3.9 million, 16-17 full movement of $7.4 million. That means that we would have an additional cost to the fund balance of $11.3 million. Again, that the auditor's recommendation is 25 to 33%. By adding that additional $7.9 million, we would reduce our fund balance percentage to 12.5%. which you can tell is about half of what the auditor's recommendation is. We're beginning to build our 16-17 budget for salaries, and so looking for some guidance on what would you like us to include in our budget. Option 1 is just to use our current 15-16 salary schedule to build the 16-17 budget, which is about $64 million. We can use a proposed salary schedule, or we can use an identified number of steps. We want to make sure that the board is fully aware of the compensation committee charge, that it aligns with board goals, it considers the district's overall needs, it's fiscally sustainable, there are non-monetary opportunities, which we've already addressed in the low cost, no cost options presented, be informed by the CBIZ data, and informed by current best workplace practices. So now I would like to open it up to you guys for discussion.
Okay, so well, If you have questions, otherwise I'll go ahead to Commissioner Lugan.
Just one quick question before it starts. Is the CBIZ data and the recommendations, is that in the live binder, or where could I find that?
Great question. Yes, it is in the live binder.
Okay.
So, Abby, just to kind of get started here, the cost of the new salary schedule, you said 1.7 million there. Can you explain to the board where that's coming from? It's basically moving them up to, min, median, all of that piece. Can you explain so the board understands where that's coming from?
Sure, I'll be glad to explain that. So within the CBIZ data, for hourly and non-affiliated groups, the proposed salary structures start at the median range and build from the median range recommended by the CBIZ data. For teachers, we did use the CBIZ data, but there were some additional conversations between HR and Dan, because they started this process, and looking to identify a starting salary for a bachelor's base with teachers of $41,250 and a master's base of $45,250. And so when we look at the CBIZ minimum, mid, and maximum range in the teachers category, the minimum is $41,628. The mid is right around $55,000, I believe, and then the top is in the 60s. So the teacher salary, because it has many more steps, we would hit those benchmarks. We're just not starting with the median CBIZ value right off the top.
Commissioner McWhale.
I know there's people in the audience here and maybe listening that I think we just kind of need to quickly define CBIZ, and that we went out just so they kind of quickly understand that.
Sure. In 12-13, I believe, the district, we had a RFP to do a compensation study for the district, and so that study was completed in 13-14. CBIZ had job titles, they had what we were currently paying, they also had job descriptions. So that way then they could look at those positions in other school districts comparable, and then also the labor market. That was some of the discussions that were had when we contracted with CBIZ, is where do we get our employees from? And so for teachers, I'm assuming that most of them were compared to other school districts, and then for the other positions, some of them are coming from school districts, some of them are coming from other businesses in the Eau Claire area.
And we found that in many places within our salary schedules did not compare to our comparables. I mean, not all, but many of them did not. So as you saw tonight, we had 7 resignations, I think, and more than we've ever had. So we really need to be cognizant of why that's happening and to make sure that we are competitive.
So, board members, a question about the numbers and so forth, and then we got to get into what kind of information Abby is interested in hearing from us. So, the real question, well, I don't know if you can answer this right now, Superintendent Hardebeck or Abby, about the feasibility, because I had felt that we should try and implement this because they did a lot of work into it, but it wasn't clear if we actually could, even if I wanted to, in 16-17, because you're saying maybe approve this in May 16th or something.
Well, my understanding is logistically it could be done. It would be, it would be a big task, but it could be done. I think the issue is whether or not the district can afford to sustain the salary schedule once it's put in place if the referendum were not to pass.
Commissioner Zhang.
We've heard my position before on this, and I'm going to, I guess, restate it. I don't believe that we should do something that we cannot sustain, because I do not believe in punishing our employees later because of our lack of foresight.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, and I guess I was a little surprised that we're kind of talking about the timing, because I recall that when we talked about this, it was, like not number one as an option. That really wasn't even an option. It was, could we do it retroactively for 16, 17, if in fact it passes. And to me, that's, I mean, clearly, we can't do it before that. It's totally unsustainable. I mean, that's why people need to vote for the referendums, because we need to pay people what they're worth. Well, we can't pay them what they're worth. They're worth a lot more than what we're proposing, but pay them enough to keep them doing what they're doing and keep them in our district and be able to, attract enough people to do it.
So you would be, number two, that would be incorporated into the referendum in some sense.
Yeah, if the timing, if it's possible, if it's feasible, if it doesn't have to be done within 2 days. I mean, what if the referendum is so close that you have to do a recount or something? And then what?
I haven't even thought of that, actually.
I agree with that.
Commissioner Duex, go ahead.
That we can pay them retroactively, but I don't want to take a chance in case it didn't pass and we couldn't sustain it for them. So.
Commissioner Luganville?
I agree with that. I think this is a whole reform, and we have to do it with proper footing, I think, and know where we sit.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hamburg-Boyle.
Abby, do we have any during that length of time that we have to go out for bonds and that we need our fund balance for getting a good interest rate?
Between the beginning of the fiscal year and the referendum date, we would be going out for cash flow borrowing probably right around that time. We typically get our cash flow borrowing mid-November.
Oops, so I have a question, because I've been concerned that the committee's been working on this for over a year. Referendum doesn't pass, all that's done. It's not used at all. I'm very concerned about that. So, are there parts of that can be, if, say it's in the referendum doesn't pass, that we have an alternative that would at least use the structure work that's been done. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about what's important to those employees beyond just moving to medium, max. I mean, there's important things that are structural in there regardless of the cost. It seems to me they've done a lot of work on that. We should figure out a way that can be implemented still. Right? I mean, otherwise you're making a referendum on all that work, not just the money part, all that work that they've done. So I have a concern about that. Commissioner Johnson.
Well, and I've shared that same thing. I feel like the structure of how we pay people and reward them for X is totally and utterly separate from the dollar amounts that you put in it. And I understand that it's very difficult to have that exercise when it affects your personal budget, because we are allowing the staff to create this thing, but, in other places, other people create it. The board creates it, administrators create it, outside consultants create it, whoever. So the work itself, to me, is separate from the dollars. And I know that's, like I said, difficult to do, but, they need to tell us what's important. Years of service, how many steps, is it, credits, is it national board certification? So that work, how you're structuring it is different from the dollar amounts that you put in it, because, theoretically 10 years from now, we'll have different dollar amounts in there.
So I think Ms. Marks can shed some light on that.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree that all of the work that the committee has done is very important, and to just kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater because a referendum doesn't pass would be certainly not favorable. I think that the systems and the structures that the committees will bring forward for the board to consider, those same things can go into place without the passing of a referendum because they are different from what we currently do. But the dollar amounts that Commissioner Johnson talked about would obviously be much less than what it is the original recommendation will come to you at. Because what it's going to come to you at now is not going to be sustainable without without the passing of a referendum. But the structure that's been created takes into account the change of Act 10 and how we can bargain and what we can, how we can budget with the CPI. So all of those pieces have been taken into account in creating that new structure. So even if the referendum doesn't pass, those structures, I believe, can still move forward just with less of a financial impact to the district, which again goes back to one of the board's charges to the committee, and that was to make sure that we had something that maintained, that we could, you know, recruit and maintain people, which obviously would be more challenging if that didn't happen. But the structures themselves that they've been working on could still be brought forward.
I'm sorry. Could that be done 16, 17?
So you're asking to bring the structure forward with a lesser fiscal amount. We can certainly look into that and what that would be.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know it's a resource issue in terms of your time and so forth to figure that out, but so that's kind of my question.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Vu was first, and then I'll go to you.
You asked the question, can it be brought back in 1617? That kind of relate to what I have in mind. This situation that we are in was created 3-4 years ago. And if you don't begin to solve that situation, the snowball will just continue to be bigger. So I am thinking that it is the right thing to go ahead, adopt the full movement, but that may not be feasible completely, knowing that we don't know what will happen during the referendum. So go ahead, adopt the full movement with the condition, pending referendum pass this year in November 2016. If it doesn't pass, don't implement it. At least implement the cost of new schedule, just that part. But the full can be wait until a future referendum, a second referendum after this year, it's passed again. So in other words, we begin to address the issue, knowing that we won't be reliable for sustaining it, but also knowing that we try to address the issue and not just postponing the issue. I think the district's position is that we want to develop the district, not to limit the district potential. I believe we also know that we are not having a problem of expenditure. It's the revenue problem. So why do we want to put our district behind, further behind, by limiting the potential of our district? So what I'm trying to say is, go ahead with the full movement, pending referendum, if you were to implement it right away. Implement it right away only if referendum is passed. If it's not passed, shoot again for another referendum in the future, immediately, until it passes.
Okay, so to make sure I understand, yours would be dependent on the referendum, but then we would try again.
Correct.
Okay, make sure I understood that. Thank you. I think Commissioner Duax was next.
Well, following up with what Kay said, there's a fairness that's come through the study. I think we have a better structure for salary and promotion and all that than we've had before. We can't continue with what we've had in the past, and the study is not lost. So yes, I agree with you, Charles, that we should try to do that, do what you said, so we get a fairness for our employees.
Thank you. Commissioner Hambeck-Boyle.
So I think I've brought this up before, probably since I first got on the board, but I'm going to bring it up one more time. And that is, you know, as we went through the compensation pieces, and I sat on one of the committees, I sit on one of the committees, the implementation or hiring season is beginning July 1st. Did we ever figure out what it would cost to fix the experience levels of those that have not been given their experience and their knowledge that they have continued to give to our district without any recognition of their time in our district, and what that would cost?
We have not been able to do that because we strictly looked at post-Act 10 and things that we can change. Before that, some of the freezes were negotiated for better benefits, and so the salary schedules weren't bumped, and so they didn't get that. And so the other part I think you're asking is, how long have people been with us, and are we going to be able to honor all the years of service, and have I costed that out? And the answer is not on the current proposed salary schedule that I've been working with.
But maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe we could address it, and it might look a little bit different, but at least it's addressed in an amount that is sustainable. I mean, it's just been sitting there like this elephant in the room for the people that are still sustaining our district, that are providing the mentoring and the pieces that our new staff need in order for our district to have that kind of experience. And would it be hard to cost that out? Even if it was giving them at least 3 of the 7 years or 4 of the 7 years or something that would be just sustainable?
Yeah, that's what this slide is, Chris. So
Yeah, okay.
basically just, moving to the new salary schedule and then honoring 1 year of service would basically be a step 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's the total price tag based upon the current salary structures that we have today. But there could still be people that have additional experience, that wouldn't go beyond, that isn't, I haven't calculated beyond the 5 years. I was asked to do since Act 10. Do you have more questions? Because I want to make sure.
You okay? Okay. Commissioner John, and then I'll get.
I don't like promising people something that I may not be able to deliver on, but I would agree that we need to honor the committee's work, and I would support moving forward minimally. And if the referendum does pass, then we can fully implement.
With the numbers part, right. Commissioner Luginbill, you still have a comment?
This slide is certainly something that needs to be communicated for the referendum. This is our bread and butter here, and that message I'd sent out about the experience gap and the kind of losses that many staff members have suffered, that's this slide. And like you said, Abby, you're just going back, back to Act 10. Many people have had taken a hit before that. And I think that this slide, though, I certainly think that the real meat of what we're going to be able to do in terms of some substantive reforms to make this a better district to attract and retain people, I think it will take a referendum, and that's why we need to take this and put it out there and put it out there as this is the experience gap, or put it out there in ways that maybe relate to the private sector or other things people can understand. I do agree that there are pieces that the compensation committees have worked on and proposed to us that we can implement, even if even without fully knowing if we'll pass a referendum. But realistically, I think we have to really level with folks that this is going to be a make it or break it in terms of a referendum, in terms of what we can do for our staff and how we can run our buildings.
Commissioner Vu.
I just want to add again, one reason to go into referendum is to fulfill the facility obligation that we have seen. So far, the district is putting into about $3 million per year. Well, not even 3 million. 1.6. Yeah. In reality, we need to put in about 3 million. So that is one problem right there already. Problem number 2 is the quality of education that, which include operational costs that we have seen. So what I'm trying to say is, unless we adopt this full recommendation as it's proposed to the board, we are not having a reason to go into referendum. Our reason is not strong enough to go into referendum. Operation and facility. And that operation includes the new proposal.
Commissioner Zhang.
I think the reason is very strong because of what you just stated, that those are the gaps in what we need to make our district function and function at a higher level. Right? Those are our needs. Those will be communicated, and if we get support, we will get support. If we don't, they won't support us anyways. But if they don't support us, we will not have the funds to implement a full 5-step movement plus a new salary schedule. That is the reason why I would support something that would go minimally, and if it does not pass, we could still sustain it.
Okay. So moving forward, so what I hear the board saying is we will look at a retroactive possibility, which would still mean budgeting for you, which was one of your main questions, really, right? Was budgeting, thinking about that. And explore at least the possibility of implementing the restructuring immediately in 2016, if you can, but meaning with basically lower dollar amounts in the table is what it comes down to, right? Moving them to a different spot than you might have been thinking, or not a different spot, but different amounts, right?
Right, we'd actually have to adjust the proposed, instead of starting at the
Right.
meeting, it would be something different.
Right, so you let us know if that's possible, if it's reasonable, or whatever. So
Okay.
see if you could explore that for us. Is that a good summary from the board? Go ahead.
So just as a clarification, Abby, could you go to the slide that says 16-17 budget development? So when we look at this budget development slide, I think what I hear the board saying is to build our budget based on the proposed salary schedule. Put whatever you determine that to be in May.
Well, really, you'll have two, if I'm understanding. One is basically neutral. It's the same structure, but it's neutral financially, essentially, close as much as we can. And the second is what a referendum would support, but it's the same structure, but just those higher amounts of that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that others' understanding?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Yeah. The other thing the board will have to think about, if you go back to that slide about steps, you'll have to think about when it comes to voting on a referendum and discussing a referendum question, do you want to include any of those in that also, besides just moving to a salary schedule? So that's not something we decide tonight, but it is something you'll have to be thinking about for a referendum, except for those who won't be here. So. Oh, you can make public comments at that time.
Yep.
All right, anything else from board members? Any other comments or questions about this? Have we helped you, Abby? Have we gotten you somewhere on this?
Yes, we have, thank you.
Okay. This was a big discussion in Budget Committee, just so you all know, on this, and hard discussion. Okay, so I think that's it. Any public comments on this topic? Any public comments on this? On the salary structures? No. Okay. All right. Any requests I have requests for future agenda items from board members. Commissioner Embuckboy.
I just had one, and that would be an update or discussion on, and this is to maybe get people to come to our district on what we're doing for national board certification and what that structure would look like for people who would like to go through that process in our district.
So you want to see what the structure is to get them through? Okay. I'm just writing here. Okay. Do I have others? Commissioner Johnson?
Well, I have been asking for an equity review of gifts, and we got a totals for, I think, for last year. I would still like to know the impact that gifts have on the equity of opportunities we have in the different schools. And then secondly, perhaps the policy committee could add to its long list whether to review the public input. I think it's probably been 10-ish years since the policy 188 was reviewed, and whether public input should be received from any person on earth, or perhaps citizens who reside in the Eau Claire Area School District.
Okay.
Somewhere in between.
Okay, so just writing as fast as I can. Okay, you'll get that. Okay, so, all right, Commissioner Luganville.
I'm not sure if this constitutes an agenda item. I don't know if we have the eco teams in our elementary schools, which is the Momentum. There's a group in the Chippewa Valley that it's a volunteer-led class, and it's an after-school program with kids. Currently, they have one at Sam Davy I was able to stop at, but they're teaching kids how to be good consumers, and it's a really neat program. Anyways, some folks are writing a grant with the EPA to be able to get a sustainability coordinator in the community. And one part of that grant will be to take over this Eco Teams club and class for kids that's after school. And they do it on a rotating basis at different elementary schools. So I have a letter of support that they sent us and said, would you or Mary Ann be willing to sign that letter? So I'm just wondering, in terms of letters of support, the best course for that, because it is a grant and it's due pretty soon from the EPA.
So well, why don't you just show it to us and we can talk about it. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I would accept the motion to adjourn.
Move.
A motion from Commissioner Hamburg-Boyle, second from Commissioner Zhang. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you to everybody.
This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television. Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.